Dominic Breazeale versus Ugonoh. What a heavyweight fight. What a heavyweight fight. Ends in a 5th round stoppage win for Dominic Breazeale. The momentum of this fight changed time and time again. Ugonoh won the early portions of the fight. Breazeale drops him in the 3rd. Gets a 10-8 round in the 3rd. Ugonoh drops Breazeale in the 4th. Gets a 10-8 round in his favour in the 4th. Breazeale comes back renewed and stops Ugonoh in the 5th round with 2 heavy knockdowns. This was a great fight to watch, and this is going to come as a shock to a lot of Ugonoh fans, particularly a lot of New Zealand fans. In my post-fight video, I got a lot of comments, saying like, with the greatest respect, Ugonoh will walk through a guy like Breazeale. This is an easy Ugonoh KO, etc., etc. So, this is kind of a lesson to me. In boxing, you need the total package of skills. If you have one weakness in your game, it is enough to undo all of the positive attributes and strengths you have. In the 1st round, in many ways, Ugonoh looked absolutely fantastic. But the writing, for my money, was already on the wall. The 1st round, comes out, and his jab is superb. Let me say, if you're a New Zealand boxing fan, Ugonoh definitely has a better jab than Joseph Parker. Or should I say he uses his jab better than Joseph Parker. And it is a substantially better jab than Joseph Parker. Izzy's jab is electric in terms of the hand speed. His natural inclination is to double and triple it up. He changes levels with it fantastically. Notice Ugonoh scoring to the body repeatedly. In the 1st round, he looks so snappy, so athletic, that it appears that he may well have too much for Dominic Breazeale. The footwork is fast. It's fantastic compared to Breazeale's slow, plodding, robotic come forward. The hand speed is on. Izzy looks every ounce the athlete, and offensively, he looked a league above Dominic Breazeale. But for me, the writing was already on the wall. Ugonoh's hands were low throughout that 1st round. He was getting tagged by big, long-range power punches by Dominic Breazeale. Breazeale isn't a big power puncher. Let's not let this knockout victory confuse us. Breazeale is not a big power puncher. But he is a 6'8", 265-pound man, who's throwing with bad intentions. So when you've got that size and that strength behind you, if you land on someone, and there was a clear size difference here. I know Ugonoh came up from the cruiserweight division, and he's probably too big to make cruiserweight these days, but you could see a size difference. Ugonoh looked very small next to Breazeale. And with Breazeale landing on Ugonoh with those power punches, even though Ugonoh won the 1st round easy, you could kind of see that the writing was on the wall. The reason I bring up Joseph Parker so much in this video is they've got the same trainer, Kevin Barry, and you can see some of the same defensive frailties there. Ugonoh's hands are far too low. There's times in this fight his hands are down by his waist. There's times you see Dominic Breazeale land a straight right on Ugonoh and his hands are literally down by his waist. He's coming in looking to do damage, looking to throw power punches on Dominic Breazeale. Maybe he's too eager. It was power punch off the power punch off the power punch. He was winning these rounds so easily. If he had just stood off, jabbed, boxed, moved, he'd have probably won this fight 10-0 on points. But instead, maybe he was looking to make a statement. Maybe he was nervous. I guess this was his first big fight that the global public will be able to see. And everything was a massive swinging power punch. And he leaves himself so open to counter when he's being hit. And to be hit by power punches, to be counterpunched and timed by a guy as slow and ponderous as Dominic Breazeale, told me that this was a 50-50 fight from the very 1st round. The advantages were all with Ugonoh. He looked the better fighter, but he was just getting caught far too often. And I don't think Kevin Barry has done a very good job on Ugonoh. At the end of the 1st round, the commentators said that Barry had said he was very happy with Ugonoh and that he looked beautiful in the 1st round. Now, anyone watching this who knows boxing knows that Ugonoh didn't look beautiful in the 1st round. He looked beautiful in 90% of his game, but he looked terrible in the most important 10% of his game. And it's that 10% of his game that he looked terrible in that cost him the fight later on. Far too overeager, far too invested in throwing power punches, not putting his hands up, not showing any head movement, getting countered by a guy as robotic as Dominic Breazeale. And that trend continued into the fight. The 3rd round, where the knockout comes, You know, Ugonoh is really on top of Breazeale. Sorry, when the knockdown comes, not knockout. Ugonoh's really on top. He's working the body fantastically. He's putting combinations together fantastically. He's catching Breazeale with all sorts of long-range power punches. He's got Breazeale in trouble. But Breazeale, you know, for some of his limitations, this guy has heart, this guy has grit, you know, at real top of the game. You know, I thought Breazeale was going to get stopped in several times in this fight, but he's like a wounded animal. You know, he's at his most dangerous in that position. And he catches Ugonoh, I think it's with a short hook, as Ugonoh comes charging in, trying to showboat with these power punches. And Ugonoh's down, and it's a heavy knockdown. It's a very heavy knockdown. You watch that back, Ugonoh could very easily have been stopped in that third round. But Ugonoh comes out renewed in the fourth round, once again fighting behind big power punches, and drops Dominic Breazeale with an overhand right that he was landing with consistently throughout the fight. At the end of the fourth round, Breazeale looked in a world of trouble. Again, I thought Breazeale was going to get stopped. I even thought his corner may consider pulling him out at the end of the fourth round. But Breazeale comes out. He shows huge powers of recovery going into the fifth round. He establishes the jab early on, and he catches Ugonoh. And Ugonoh got knocked down, got back up again, and got knocked through the ropes. It was pretty, as these things go, it was a pretty bad knockdown. What cost Ugonoh this loss? I've got to say, I don't think he's got elite level punch resistance. I think he's small for the weight, and you know, I think the contrast is he landed 3 times as many power punches on Dominic Breazeale as Breazeale landed on him. Yet Ugonoh was the one who got dropped 3 times and knocked out. So I'm not saying Ugonoh's necessarily got bad punch resistance. He got hit on the chin multiple times by a guy who was much bigger than him, but he doesn't have as good a punch resistance as Dominic Breazeale. Let's put it that way, because Dominic Breazeale ate a hell of a lot of leather. But his defensive frailties really cost him. Really cost him. The fact that his hands were just low, the fact that there wasn't enough head movement, he was just there to get hit. And even though he had every advantage under the sun, you know, athletically, hand speed, power, you know, technique, he was a sitting duck. Let me say, this is what happens when you have a fighter who's brought along like Ugonoh was brought along. I've covered him numerous times on the channel. Long-term viewers will know I've covered him numerous times on the channel. And I said in my pre-fight video, this is a tremendous step up. You know, Ugonoh's best wins are the likes of Julius Long and Gregory Tony. I don't even think those guys are in the top 100 of the heavyweight division. Those guys, for me, are top 200 heavyweights. And he steps straight up from top 200 to a guy like Dominic Breazeale, who's probably top 25, certainly top 25 after that win, who's been in with guys like Amir Mansour, who's been in with guys like Anthony Joshua, who's been in with guys like Fred Cassie. The fact that Ugonoh has been fighting such a low level of opponent means he's literally just walked through them without having the learning lessons you need. Look at the lessons Joseph Parker learnt against Collister Camp, you know, against Sherman Williams. No one's ever taught Ugonoh those lessons because he's fought such a crap level of opposition. He's just absolutely walked through them, and he needed a fight, you know, at that sort of top 50, top 60 level. You know, he needed some more education, because some of the glaring holes in his game were not exposed during those top 200 level fights, and they just got a hell of a lot exposed against Dominic Breazeale. So for me, Ugonoh remains a fantastic talent. He can come again. You know, some of the things he showed in that ring were really impressive, and I'd certainly watch him again. He's an exciting fighter. He does certain things in there fantastically well. You know, rate Ugonoh. But for me, his trainer, and to an extent, the fights he's been in, are to blame for this. You can't tell a fighter, a prospect, he's doing a beautiful job when he's getting caught by that many counters. If you're doing that, that's poor corner work. You can't put a guy in with a top 25 fighter when he's never fought anyone in, you know, who's tested him and asked any questions of him. You know, it's always going to end in disaster, and that's what happened. You know, I've been talking about Izzo on this channel for 2 or 3 years now, and I've consistently said about, you know, the lack of opposition and that sort of thing, and it's come back to bite him, which is really unfortunate, because as I say, he was, if you split down them into percentages, which I know you can't effectively do, but he was 90% the better boxer in there. But his Achilles heel, that horrible defence, it was not You know, Parker's defence isn't quite as bad, but it's similar the way he carries his hands low. That was Ugonoh's Achilles heel. And let me tell you, had he been in against a Deontay Wilder or an Anthony Joshua, you know, or a David Haye, one of those punchers, I think Ugonoh would have been taken out in the first round, because the amount of clean counter punches he was eating from round one was evident to see. Credit to Dominic Breazeale, you know, a huge heart, huge will to win, great powers of recovery. The guy showed immense durability against Anthony Joshua, and he's shown it again and more against Ugonoh. Dominic Breazeale is someone I've never been a fan of, but he made me a fan of him tonight, and certainly I hope he gets another big fight. The fight was initially scheduled to be against Arthur Spilka, and maybe that would be a great fight. I'd still like to see Breazeale Spilka. You know, the winner of that, definitely sort of on the borders of being a top 15 heavyweight if that gets made. So let's hope that happens. Let's hope Izzy comes back. But when Izzy comes back, let's see him against a Sherman Williams. Let's see him against a Jason Gavern. Let's see him against an Alexander Dimitrenko. You know, what I'm getting at is let's drop the level 20%, and let's give him that education that he needs, that he never got when he was smashing up bin men and he was smashing up welterweights. You know, that's my thoughts. Great fight, really enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it, strongly advise you check it out. All action, some great boxing this weekend. Leave your comments in the section below. Am I being harsh on Izzy? Am I being harsh on his trainer? I don't think so, but maybe you disagree. Leave your comments below. You know, who did you have winning this fight at the time of the stoppage? Where does Dominic Breazeale go from here? Where does Ugonoh go from here? I want your comments in the section below, people. If you're new to the channel, or if you haven't subscribed before, please take the time to press subscribe. I'll try and put my logo on the screen here. Click on the logo and there's an option to subscribe, or you know, you can always subscribe the normal way as well. So please subscribe to check out my other stuff, and if you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. Massively helps with the visibility of my stuff. Thanks for tuning in.